While they're returning from a late-night party, David, Emily, and Corey suddenly get trapped in an ATM booth by an unknown, hooded man who shows them how dangerous he is and is hell-bent on killing them. Get ready for an unbelievably thrilling ride that subverts your expectations at every turn in ATM. A man carefully makes his plans and puts on a fur coat before heading out. Meanwhile, David reaches his office building and is at the end of the day, arguing with a client, explaining that he tried to spread the investment risk as wide as he could, but it's just the unfortunate state of the economy. The client hangs up on him, and David's friend Corey assures him that it's not his fault. Frustrated, David asks whose fault it is then and remarks that he never even met this guy. He just moved around some numbers, but now he's screwed. Corey tells him to stop moping, and he admits he should have probably taken today off, but Corey says he would have missed his chance if he did that. David asks what he means and looks over at their colleague, Emily. Corey explains that today's her last day and she's quitting from what he's heard, so he should stop being the scaredy cat and should go ask her out. David says he's already tried, but Corey reminds him of how he couldn't say the word date to her and asked her if she wanted to meet up for a gathering. Corey tries to convince him to propose to Emil, but he gets up and says he'll see him Monday. Surprised, Corey asks why he isn't coming to the Christmas party and says it's going to be a good time. If he leaves now, he's going to ruin his chance with Emily forever. David thinks about it and agrees to stay for one drink, so Corey tells him it's going to be a good time. At the party, David keeps glancing over towards Emily and hurriedly excuses himself to get some napkins when Corey accidentally spills some fruit punch. He slowly makes his way to the tail and offhandedly greets Emily, remarking that he heard she was leaving. He congratulates her and asks if she needed a change, which she agrees to, remarking that she's gone as far as she can handle in finance. They make some awkward small talk before she decides to get going and says goodbye to him. Outside, she's unable to flag a taxi and David hurriedly runs up to her, believing she's forgotten her hat, but he realizes she's wearing hers and that he accidentally stole someone else's hat. He says she can consider it a going-away present from whoever owns it, so she says she's really not going that far since her office is just a few blocks away. David stones himself and slowly asks if she wants to go out for lunch sometime. Taken aback, she agrees and admits she's nervous about this and about them talking. Surprised, he slowly says they've talked plenty of times before, but she says that was at work when he would call her at her desk and ask if she had a balance sheet, but that was basically it. He admits he never cared about the balance sheets, hearing which she smiles but notices she missed another taxi. He says he can just give her a ride home and she initially declines, explaining that she lives really far out of the city, but David insists and she admits that would be great. He hurriedly tells her that he'll meet her back in a minute and quickly returns to the party where he tells the other guys that he'll be leaving now since he's giving Emily a ride home. Pleasantly surprised, Corey reminds him of how he didn't even want to come tonight. David tells the others that he'll see them on Monday as Corey gets up and says he's his ride home. Bemused, David asks if he can't just take a cab, so Corey says he doesn't have any more cash on him. David checks his wallets and asks the other guys if they have any spare cash on them, so Corey just tells him to drop him in the way since it'll take 10 minutes. David reminds him that he lives 20 minutes opposite from Emily, so Corey asks if he's going to make him walk like that, hearing which David begrudgingly agrees. As they're going, Corey throws David his phone, but he accidentally drops it since he's driving and decides to leave it there until they stop. David apologizes to Emily for going out of the way, but she assures him it's fine since she's enjoying the company, and Corey remarks that he's pretty good. He says he's really hungry and suggests they get some food, so David reminds him that it's after midnight and he can just eat something at home. Corey says he doesn't have anything at home and suggests they just stop here since it shouldn't be a big deal. David argues that nothing's going to be open right now, but he reminds him of their pizza spot and says it should be open right now. David frustratingly says he has to take Emily home, so Corey prefaces that he wants him to take Emily home, but he's just saying that if he gets some food, all his third wheel shenanigans will end. He tells David to take him to an ATM since the pizza place only accepts cash, so David asks where the nearest one is. David purposefully parks some distance away from the ATM to punish Corey, so he drunkenly steps out to get the money. Meanwhile, David tells Emily he'll make sure they get the pizza quickly and admits the place really makes some good pizza. He stops rambling about the pizza flavors and apologizes for telling her about all this pointless crap, and she remarks that she thought she was the nervous one, so he says he isn't nervous, and she clarifies that she likes it and she thinks it's cute. They suddenly notice Corey beckoning for David to come, so he once again says sorry to Emily and hurriedly runs towards the ATM. After awkwardly waiting a while, she decides to join them as well and explains she didn't just want to keep waiting. David says it'll just take a moment, and she informs him that the car wouldn't lock, so he explains that the clicker button on the keys is broken and explains that Corey's card isn't working. When he's done, they start leaving but suddenly stop at the gate upon noticing a man whose face is hidden by a fur coat standing in front of them. They wonder why he's put there, so Corey says he's probably waiting to use the ATM, but David argues that he didn't come inside and tells him to just wait. Corey says he's freezing, but David stops him from leaving, and they wonder if he's trying to rob them. David says it's 1 in the morning and asks why else this guy would be standing in the middle of an empty parking lot for nothing. Tired of waiting, Corey decides to leave and opens the door, but the man slowly starts walking towards them. Spooked, Corey closes the door and wonders if he just thought they were done and wanted to use the ATM. Emily suggests they call the police, so Corey straight up bangs on the door and asks the guy if he wants to use the ATM. He doesn't answer, so David says he probably wants to rob them and checks if he has anything on him. Corey tries to assure them that it's nothing and says they'll be fine if they just leave all at once. Emily suggests that he's homeless, but David says he doesn't look homeless because of how big he is. Suddenly, the guy turns around and starts slowly walking towards a man whose dog runs away. They wonder what he's doing as the man's pace quickens and he smacks the man in the face. Shocked, Emily hurriedly turns away as David tries banging on the glass to make the guy stop. The guy relentlessly keeps slamming the man's head on the road and only stops when the man goes completely immobile. Bewildered, David hurriedly asks the others where their phone is, but they realize they left it in their cars, so he and Corey start looking for a panic button, but aren't able to find one. They panic and try looking for an emergency phone, but aren't able to find that either, so they turn around to face the hooded man who silently watches them. David says there has to be something they can do to ask for help, but Corey remarks that there's no one else out there. Emily wonders why the guy isn't coming in, so David says he might not have an ATM card since that's required to enter, and Corey slowly asks if the guy with the dog had one. Emily shakily says they have to do something, so David asks for his keys, suggests that he might be able to get to this car, but the others protest since the guy is standing right in front of them. Seeing them argue, the guy turns around and walks towards the car. He opens the trunk and takes out the equipment required for changing the tire. He goes towards the back of the ATM booth and starts hammering at its back. They hurriedly wonder what they should do, so David suggests that he can reach his car before the guy can catch him, but Corey stops him, and Emily says they should just wait since it will be time for sunup soon and the parking lot will be full of people. David remarks that they'll all freeze to death since the sun won't be up for hours, but Emily tells him that it's too dangerous. Suddenly, the man cuts off the heat to the ATM booth and returns to the front. David starts trying to break the glass to trigger a possible alarm, but Emily hurriedly reminds him that the man will be able to get in if they do that, so Corey and he try to trigger the alarm on the ATMs, but Emily suddenly spots a fire alarm and asks for a lighter, but they said they don't have one. Suddenly, they notice cops and start banging the glass as hard as they can to draw the attention. But the car doesn't notice them and turns back. David decides to take out as much money as they have to bribe the guy. Emily hands over her earrings and Corey gives his watch, but she suddenly asks Corey how he was able to get in if his card isn't working. Stunned, David asks if he's actually being a cheapskate so that he doesn't have to take out his money, but Corey slowly says that isn't the case. David takes the stuff they have and plans to throw it out, telling them both to run towards the main road as fast as they can once they get out, but Emily says there might be more of them and the guy overhears their plan. David tells them that if he can get to the car, he can go for the man despite Corey saying he's standing them. Seeing that the man's gone to the back again, David slowly exits the ATM booth, offering the man the money and asking him to just let them go since they won't even tell anyone about this and haven't even seen his face. He slowly steps forward and tosses the money and the valuables towards the man. As the man stops down to pick the stuff up, David rushes towards his car, so the man starts chasing after him. David hurriedly manages to make it to the car, but realizes the door to the driver's seat isn't open, so he rushes to the other side and quickly gets in through the other door. He starts fumbling with the keys and tries to shove them in, but realizes the man has cut the wire, so he quickly unzips Emily's purse and takes her phone out. He starts dialing 911, but the man breaks open the window and opens the car door. He quickly tries pulling David out and he accidentally drops the phone. David tries to fight against him, but the man manages to get his jacket and throws him out. David hurriedly starts limping towards the ATM booth as Corey and Emily panic and open the door for him. The man goes after him, but he barely manages to get inside. The man picks up Emily's phone, David's wallet, and the packet of valuables and throws them into the car's trunk as David wearily lies on the ground. They start freezing, so Emily shakily uses her lipstick to write the word "heal" on the glass and asks for David's card and his PIN. She says she remembers hearing that if you put your ATM PIN backwards, it automatically alerts the police and is seen as a sort of panic code, but Corey says that's just an urban legend and asks what you do if your PIN was 4224, which is written the same both ways. He suddenly sees that the man has disappeared, but David asks if he actually saw him leave and says he might have just gone to the back of the booth. Corey says they should still make a run for it because they're safer outside than they are in here, but Emily says they're safe here. He furiously explains the man doesn't need to have a card to enter. He can just throw a rock to break one of these windows or drive the car in, so she angrily asks why he hasn't done that yet. She asks why he's targeting them, so Corey says he could be the man who was screaming at David today, but David says that man was in his 60s and they start arguing. Emily asks David if he lost someone's retirement plan, but he insists that isn't related to this and questions why he would just kill some guy walking with a dog if that was the case. Corey says he can't feel his fingers and they rub their hands together for some warmth. They suddenly see the police car from before patrolling the parking lot, and Corey tells them to make a run for it as soon as he notices them. He realizes it's a security guard and won't have a gun, so they wouldn't be able to do anything to the man, but the guard notices them and slowly approaches their booth. They start banging on the mirror and open the door as he gets out of the car. Emily hurriedly tells him to call the police, but he can't hear them over the howling wind and asks if they're okay. He looks around and finds the dead guy's body, so he quickly gets ready to alert his colleagues, but the man appears from the darkness and knocks him down. He starts beating him to death and shuts down the police car as well. Emily slowly retreats into a corner and asks the others to leave her alone, so David and Corey discuss what they should do. Corey says he still thinks they can make a run for it and suggests that one of them can distract the man while the other takes Emily and runs. David asks who's going to play as bait because he sure as hell isn't going out there again. Disoriented, Emily asks if they have any more plans. Suddenly, the man enters the booth, so David and Corey rush forward and start beating him up. They work together to take him down and pin him to the ground as David desperately chokes him to death. Shocked, Emily says they have to call the police, but Corey says they're going to leave now and gets up to leave. He abruptly freezes at the door, so David asks if he's fine and is shocked to see the actual man standing outside. Bewildered, they start panicking and wonder who they just killed. Corey hurriedly rummages through his belongings and they manage to find his wallet, which contains pictures of his family. Shocked, they slowly break down and realize he was just trying to use the ATM on his way to work. Corey turns over the guy's body and takes off his jacket so that he can wear it. David remarks that he just had to make him stop, but Corey says he didn't force him to do anything and he could have just said no, so David argues that he did say no twice. Corey tells him that it's his fault, hearing which David angrily gets up and grabs his collar. Emily tries to get them to stop, so they break off and realize the man has disappeared. Frustrated, Corey exclaims that he's tired of this, tired of waiting for that guy and for someone to come save them. David asks what he's going to do, so he says they're going to leave because that's one guy and there's 3 of them here. Emily regretfully says she can't go out there, but Corey says he doesn't care if they want to stay and die because he's done with this. He ignores Emily, telling him to not go, and hurriedly leaves. Despite David stopping him, he starts running but gets taken down by something in the dark. Emily desperately tells David to get inside because they can't stay out here before the man appears, and stabs Corey with a syringe. David tries to save him, but Emily doesn't let go of his arm and he throws her inside as Corey tries to struggle, but his body goes limp soon. Emily and David sit down together and he says he reveals he desperately picked up the hat to keep her from leaving, but looking back, he wishes he had just let her go. She remarks that she could have gotten a cab. She could have not attended the party. She could have never worked at their office in the first place, but she did all those things and made a million other random choices. She remarks that she was thinking lunch would have been a good decision. As they are about to kiss, the ATM door at the back suddenly starts getting banged and they realize Corey's moving. David hurriedly says they have to help him since the man is nowhere to be seen, so they quickly rush through the parking lot and grab him. They start hauling him back in and barely manage to get in despite the man chasing after them thanks to him slipping. She hurriedly gives David some slips from the desk inside, and they try applying pressure on David's wound, unsure of what the man stabbed him with. Meanwhile, the man starts a car and blocks the door to the ATM with it, while David takes a trash can and starts banging on the ATM to trigger some sort of alarm. He alarmingly sees that they've been blocked in and tries applying pressure on Corey's wound as Emily breaks down due to the blood. Suddenly, the ATM begins to flood with freezing water, so they desperately prop Corey's body up in the corner and David tries to light the smoke alarm on fire, but it doesn't work. They quickly gather all heat paper they can find in a trash bin on fire to trigger the fire alarm, but that doesn't work either. Emily climbs on his shoulders, successfully triggering the alarm, but she gets struck on the head and dies. David desperately breaks down and holds her body before another car crashes into the booth, completely destroying the entrance. In a fit of rage, David spots the man sitting on a chair and throws a bottle of alcohol covered in flames towards him, only to realize it's a decoy he made. Police cars hurriedly arrive and pin David down as he desperately begs them to go before the man who's standing in the dark, but they force him into the car and refuse to listen to anything he says. As they take him away, he notices several people in the crowd watching, wearing the same coat the man was. As the police check the surveillance footage, it's revealed that the killer framed David for the murder, and he later returns to his office where he starts planning the next attack. Thanks for watching his recap. Make sure to like the video, comment what you thought of the ending, and subscribe to the channel for more recaps like this, because I will see you all next time.